Johnstone here, Fat coming to you with a micro match report on Rangers' 2-0 win over St Johnstone at McDermott Park on Saturday. Rangers winning 2-0 at the home of the team, bottom of the table in the lunchtime SPFL Premiership kick-off, a win that propels Rangers up to 4th in the table, a win that sees us just 1.1 draw away from achieving double figures in the points tally. Hopefully before the end of September we get up to the big 1-0. Everything in the garden is rosy. It's all systems go under Michael Beale. Michael Beale, a man who, let's be honest, every game he plays as Rangers manager between now and the end of this month, September 2023, if not every game he plays between now and the end of the calendar year 2023, if he wins it, it's not going to prove that he's the long-term future of Rangers. It's not going to prove that he's the man for the job. But if he loses it, if he slips up, he's sacked. He's going to definitely prove that he's not the man for the job. After that horrendous 5-1 loss in Eindhoven, followed so hard upon by that risible 1-0 loss in the first Old Firm game of the season at Ibrox, coat is on the proverbial shaky peg. He really needed this on Saturday. Now, the talk over the last 2 weeks, that horrendous international break where we had too much time to think about how bad we'd been at the start of the season, was that he needed to win this game and win it in some style. And of course, we've been so ghettoised by the form that we've had at the beginning of the season that we were just quite happy to take the 2-0 win in the end up. The goals we scored were very stylish, but the win itself pretty poor. For long periods of this game, it looked like St Johnstone could get back in. They could take something off us and ultimately cost Michael Beale his job, I would imagine. I don't know how official the doubts about Michael Beale are, but Rangers social media is very loudly calling for the man's head, and that has a bit of an effect on the board, as we've seen over the past couple of years. So vital that he got the win, but for 79 minutes, basically with 10 minutes to go, that was the last 10 minutes was the only kind of part of the game Michael Beale could probably enjoy, because that was the only time that the result was really secure. We had 6 changes to the starting lineup from that terrible Old Firm game just before the international break. One of them enforced by Todd Cantwell's injury, but you had Ridvan Yilmaz and Ben Davies coming in to change the left-hand side of the defence. Ridvan Yilmaz at left back, I'm assuming he's going to be replaced by Borna. Well, Ridvan's not in the European squad, so Borna's probably going to be the man to come back in and replace him on Thursday against Real Betis. Ben Davies making his first appearance for ages. We're all keen to see him or not, as the case may be. A lot of us wanting rid of Ben Davies. A lot of us thinking the only reason he's still here is because he doesn't want to leave, and we can't justify getting rid of him with the money it cost us. In front of them, you obviously had Connor Goldson, right-sided centre-half, and then Tav at right-back, Jack Butland in goals. But in front of the two centre-halves, we had a sitting two of Nico Raskin and John Lundstrom. It's in a 4-2-3-1 we're playing on Saturday. There's a 3 in front of them. We've got Tom Lawrence out in the left-hand side. Now, Tom Lawrence, his first start for Rangers in 13 months. Absolutely fantastic to see him back. A great 10, Tom Lawrence. So he was out wide on the left. Out wide on the right, you had Sam Lammers, who I thought was a bit of a 10 as well, if not an out-and-out striker. But he was kind of wide right. Jury still kind of out on Sam Lammers. Really good pre-season, good in friendlies, then not so good as the actual season itself started, but showing bits and flashes, but not enough. As a 10, almost sitting behind the main striker, was Kamar Roof, the best goal scorer in Scotland as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, and up front, on his own, Danilo Pereira da Silva, the Brazilian that we've been so keen to see getting more game time. He's kind of frozen out a bit by Michael Beale. Had a couple of horror misses in European football. Well, one really bad horror miss in Switzerland. The other one against PSV Eindhoven at Ibrox. Not a horror miss as such. But I think that the support, maybe we're dazzled by the Brazilian aspect. We just assume he's got flair, he's got style, he's got something more to offer. But the support, like what they've seen of Danilo so far. So we're really happy to see him starting. But I really wasn't happy to see the first quarter of an hour of this match. So you're looking for Rangers to come out and come out the traps, totally psyched up, determined to prove that we are the team, Michael Beale is the man, and we're going to put all that nonsense behind us. A criticism that the last 2 weeks ringing in their ear. No, it just seemed to be asleep, a slow kind of control of the game generally, but not a lot happening. I found myself just focusing on the Robin Galloway returns to pure radio. Robin Galloway is on pure radio. I was thinking, who is Robin Galloway? What's pure radio? It didn't even seem to make sense. It was this big old advertising hoarding in one of those corners, empty corners they've got between the stands. And I was thinking, McDiarmid Park, yeah, you remember in this game that McDiarmid Park is a kind of Lego version of 1980s Ibrox, so they've got the blocks, different coloured blocks of seats, and there's nothing between the corners, between the stands, there's nothing in there. And I'm looking at this Robin gallery sitting there. That was all I had to think about, because it was dire, it was awful. But then, one of the other criticisms of Michael Beale that was coming to the fore in the last 2 weeks of head scratching and rending of clothing and what have you was that there's no discernible style. He doesn't know his best team, doesn't know his best formation. And of course, a lot of us are saying, well, that doesn't actually matter if we don't know what it is, if we can't recognise it. What's his style? What's he trying to do? What's the formation? Well, if we know what it is, then the opposition will definitely know what it is. So it's maybe not a bad thing that we don't know the style, as long as the players understand it. But it was a 4-2-3-1 unmistakably on Saturday, and it seemed like a sprung trap with Raskin and Lundstrom, the sitting two, not just Ryan Jack in there at the bottom of a diamond, or Lundstrom himself at the bottom of a diamond. The two of them sitting seemed like a sprung trap. Now they're sitting deeper to protect the two centre halves, because the fullbacks are right up over the halfway line as often as possible. There were wing backs more than fullbacks by a long way on Saturday, and you then get this three, which just says, I mean, as Led Zeppelin would say, we've got a whole lot of tens. We've got a whole lot of tens. And yet the tens we've got out wide, and then we've got a centre forward playing. I know Kamar Roof is much more than an out-and-out striker. He can do everything in and around the box, in and around. Sorry, I hate using that phrase, but he can do everything. But really, having him as a 10 when you've got anyway, the manager must know what he's doing. But it did look like square pegs and round holes again. And one of those big criticisms that was getting floated over the last fortnight was he's bought all these players and he still doesn't know how to play them. And then here we have these tens getting played as wingers. It was a bit puzzling, and it was really, really boring until St Johnstone get a corner. A quarter of an hour into the game, they miss everybody, Rangers players, St Johnstone players. It goes right over to our left back slot, if you like, and it's that spring. Suddenly, Raskin and Lundstrom are heading for it. They're not just there to protect the centre halves. There's more to it than that. They shoot right out there. Raskin gets there first, carries it up to the kind of halfway line. He's needing some support, and Tav comes powering through. He's overlapping almost through the kind of centre circle. So Raskin offloads it to him. Tav works a kind of 1-2 with Lammers, who's in a kind of into the inside right position now. It's a kind of convoluted, extended 1-2. Lammers, wee bit of silky skills. He puts the ball out to Tav, who's heading for the corner. He's right on the wing and puts over a really cultured, educated, just a beautiful ball. He crosses over right to the edge of the 6-yard box. Any centre half, centre forward, worth their salt is going to love that, and up goes Danilo. Bang! He just meets it absolutely perfectly. Cracking header, flashes past their Bulgarian goalkeeper, almost busts the net. But the centre half that I'm talking about is a St Johnstone centre half who arrives there a tad late, and before Danilo, who's been, he's slightly frozen out by the manager, just really deserving of a happy moment. Before he even probably gets to see the ball going over the line, he's bang. I think his head makes contact with the St Johnstone centre half's shoulder, but it must also be a clash of heads in there too, because the two of them are semi-concussed, and it's like 5 minutes of treatment and they both go off the park quite rightly. Can't take any chances with these things, but it's like Danilo doesn't even get to celebrate the goal with the fans and have the moment that he's really deserved, and we're denied a striker who could suddenly be on form, who's suddenly on a roll. It's kind of typical of the way things are going. Just the very moment something positive happens, it's kind of taken away from us, and there's a price to pay. A huge blow. Michael Beale kept calling it really inappropriately when it was a huge blow. Literally, the guy's face is up like a balloon. The side of his head's all bruised and puffed out. He's got a cut and all that, and it turns out he's got a compound fracture. Don't know how long he's going to be out for, but just the main thing is we hope Danilo is okay. It's a cracking goal. Poor fella doesn't get to even enjoy it. And after that, the game just peters out to half time. And when St Johnstone come out in the second half, they don't have sustained pressure, so it's not like camped outside our box, but it's worrying. it's just worrying, especially the form we have been in or the form we've not been in of late. There's a slack pass back by Ben Davis to Jack Butland, which allows Chris Kane, the St Johnstone striker, to get in there and have a wee dive, which could have gone the other way. Jack Butland does get there first, but VAR might have seen it different. But he doesn't get the penalty. Chris Kane, he's not really appealing for it because he knows what he's done. But then St Johnstone put him onto the back post and nobody can get on it. There's Jack Butland always has a moment. I think it's every game now. He has a moment, and it's the only mistake he makes. But he does it once per game where he'll come out to his back post and he'll overextend himself and he'll completely miss the ball, completely flap it fresh air. And this time we got away with it. The ball get cleared, but there's also Tom Lawrence is caught by the cameras holding on to Chris Kane in the box at one point as well. Definitely got a kind of grappling with that St Johnstone forward. Could have been a penalty. VAR had so decided. Didn't work like that. We had a goal ourselves disallowed. A second goal, it would have been at the time, disallowed just after the hour mark. Tav puts a lovely ball from deep in his own half over the top, and Kamar Roof and Seema, who come on to replace Danilo, they really kind of take the St Johnstone centre half to pieces, and a lovely bit of kind of combination play from the two of them as strikers, and Seema tees up Roof to have his second goal ruled out by VAR in successive games. Ruled offside. The lines are drawn automatically. They're calibrated. I'm not going to protest that. That's just how it works. So that didn't count. But then we do eventually get the third goal. Ball in the net for the third time, second goal, and it's the same thing. That's 3 times we've had the ball in the net. That's what I'm talking about, a third goal. 3 times we've had the ball in the net, and every time it's a counter-attack. It's this kind of sprung trap thing. We're coming deep from our own half, which is a really maybe kind of embarrassing way to be playing against St Johnstone at McDermott Park. St Johnstone are doing so poorly, but never mind. What happens is it's Ben Davis has a couple of goes at clearing a ball just to the outside of our box. It eventually comes to Lundstrom, who one time, just first time, one touch, lays it off beautifully to his pal, who he knows where he is. He knows where Raskin is by this point. They're working so well together. They really are a pair. He lays it to Raskin straight away without even looking. Raskin takes a bit of control and then lays it off to Tom Lawrence, who by this point has come into play as a 10. Only 2 substitutions in this game, one of them enforced because of the injury to Danilo. But this one was Matt Rabbi Matondo had come on for Lammers, and it lets Tom Lawrence go in and play as a 10, and Matondo can go wide in the left. And Tom Lawrence, the ball comes to me, lets it run past him, and again it's one touch, the same as Lundstrom. One touch just splits the St Johnstone defence and puts Rabbi Matondo, his compatriot, through on goals. It's a design for life. It's Max Boyce. It's whatever, and Rabbi just takes it on his left foot, runs into the box with it, and fires it away with his right foot into the faraway corner. 2-0, game done, and Michael Beale kind of ruins it for me by coming out post-match and talking about how, well, we've actually 3 clean sheets now in the league. Yeah, every game Rangers have played in the league this season, Michael, and there's only been 5 of them. There's only 5 games before we start talking about form, has featured a nil. There's been a nil in every game Rangers have played in the SPFL Premiership this season, but 2 of them have been us. So I don't know, it's not something we want to be hearing at this point in time. That's us get 3 clean sheets. It sounds like a real dearth of ambition from a Rangers manager. Just as they started talking about how good Real Betis were and getting into, they're 6th in the table and blah, 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 and Real Betis got hammered 5-0 by Barcelona that night. So yeah, I'm kind of concerned by how Michael Beale was talking things up, but the way he played on Saturday with the 2 sitting midfielders and kind of going for the ball, and suddenly as much as they're sweeping up in front of the defence, they're getting ready to set the 4 attacking players free. It worked. Technically, it did actually work. You got to give the man credit where it's due. I don't think Michael Beale is going to be a set kind of plan B is do plan A better. He's not going to come out of the same formation every game. I think it's anathema to him. I don't think he's physically capable of doing that. He's a guy who obviously has so many tunes in his head. He's got so many blueprints in there. All he thinks about is tactics all the time. He's a coaching guru. Now, that doesn't make him a good manager necessarily. That's a debate that's been going on. But I mean, he won 1-0 last season at St Johnstone in the Scottish Cup at McDermott, and that's him won 2-0. So that's technically an improvement if we're just looking at it in isolation. And his tactical flexibility and this kind of formational interchangeability doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be fluidity on the park. The players might not be able to cope with it, but they did seem to make it work on Saturday, albeit against a team at the bottom of the league. And maybe, who knows, in a year's time we'll be thinking that Michael Beale just stuck by his guns. He knew what he wanted to do. But I think this criticism he was getting last week, where he's reactive rather than proactive, I think that's how Michael Beale's actually going to function. I don't think he wouldn't be able to look at an opposition team, know how they're going to play, as he no doubt will, and not be able to react to that. He's done it too much. I think playing Celtic on the break at Ibrox was definitely, I think, him trying to say the two Celtic centre-halves that we wanted to see our players run straight at and get right on top of. Michael Beale's thing was not just put a ball across the top and chase them down. So we end up looking like we're playing on the break, and he changed that in the second half to camp outside the box. Neither thing worked. I was talking about this last week in my wee videos last week on this channel. Neither thing worked, but I think he's going to change it. I think he's going to react to the opposition all the time, and he needs his players to be intelligent enough to do that. So lots of players rested, if you like, on Saturday, and we'll see what happens against Real Betis on Thursday night, where the green and white royalists from Seville were coming to Ibrox. Say they took a 5-0 doing at the Montjuic Olympic Stadium in Barcelona. The stadium, I'm not sure, I've never been able to work this out. I've looked at photographs and everything of Rangers training for the 1972 Cup Winners' Cup final, and we definitely trained either there. I think people report it as being the Olympic Stadium that we trained at before that final at the new camp, or it would be Sarria, the old Espanyol's old ground, no longer there. And I've not been able to quite work out from the photographs and from the evidence I had in front of me which one's what, just the same as I can't quite work out what Michael Beale's plan is for Rangers tactically. But what remains to be found out is whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll get another clue on Thursday night. Meantime, it would be remiss of me to say don't go onto Gersnet. Do go onto Gersnet. Go onto Gersnet, the best pod in Poddington. We're going to try and pretend here that I'm not on Gersnet, or that the only reason you're here is because you know me through Gersnet. A much more detailed match report, post-match reaction from myself on Gersnet, and also the boys last night. We had Grant making his debut with Craig Ray and Dougie. Really good chat they had about Perth and Betis. So I'll go on and check that out, folks. And also I'd just like to apologise to anybody who was offended by my half-hour rant post-match on Saturday on Gersnet. I was talking a lot about, the sectarian singing that was going on and how I voted in 2014 and 2016 in the SNP and politics and all that, and a lot of people were really offended by me talking about preferring roast chicken to spag bol. That's Gersnet for you. You throw in the politics, you throw in the sectarianism, you throw in the controversial stuff, and everybody comes back at you about the other statement you made about having spag bol on a Saturday night when you really wanted roast chicken. Check it out, it's good fun, folks.